Welcome to Vision Plus, and welcome to this class where we shall look at domain and range of functions. In the previous video where we did the introduction, we said that domain is a set of real values of x. In other words, domain consists of all the values of x for which f of x is well defined. This means that domain is a set of the real values of x for which they are corresponding output values of y. The corresponding output values of y is what we say for which f of x is well defined. So the real input values give us the real output values of y, which we are saying well defined. In other words, domain is also called the object. So when the question asks you to find the object, it means you find the real values of x for which f of x is well defined. We also say that the codomain of a function is a set of the real values or the real numbers of y. The codomain is a set of values that is well defined by the domain. That means that the codomain is dependent on the domain. The values of codomain are derived from the values of domain by following the rule called a function. And in other words, the codomain is also called the range or the image. So codomain is a set of values of y that is well defined by the domain. When we are finding domain and range, there are two rules that we must never break. We must never break these two rules when we are finding the domain and when we are finding the range. The first rule is that we cannot divide by 0. We cannot divide by 0. For instance, we are not supposed to get maybe a number 4 divided by 0. This one, we don't want it in the real number system. Rule number 2, we cannot take square roots of negative numbers in real number system. In real number system, we don't take square roots of negative numbers. For instance, root of negative may be 6. We want to avoid these cases as much as we can. In your complex numbers, you can get the square root of a negative number, true, but those roots are not real roots. We call them imaginary roots in complex numbers. But simply here, in the real number system, not the imaginary number system, we don't need to get the square root of any negative number. Now, after knowing the rules, let us look at how do we state the domain and the range of a function. So ways of stating the range and the domain. The first way is what we call the interval notation. For instance, we can say maybe the domain runs from negative infinity up to positive infinity. Take care, these are parentheses. These ones are parentheses. These ones we call them parentheses. That is the first way. And this parenthesis has a meaning, as we shall see as we move on. The second way of stating the domain and the range of a function is what we call the set builder notation. For example, this means that x, it means that there is a set x, and in that set x there are values of x which are real numbers. So it means x is a set that comprises of only real numbers. This is how we state it in the set builder notation. So as we go to examples, we must go with these four things in mind. One, we must go with these two rules, that we don't take the square root of a negative number and we don't divide by 0. And then also we have two ways of stating the domain and the range. That is the interval notation and the set builder notation.